Hello everyone and welcome to Learn Visual Studio Code or Learn VS Code in 10 simple steps. So in this 35 minutes video, I'm going to go and walk through 10 simple steps, where, I'm going to go and explain you how to go and use this awesome thing called as Visual Studio Code. So the first step is, the step one is that we need to go and get the Visual Studio Code, right? So to get Visual Studio Code, you can go to this code.visualstudio.com and you can download this setup what you have here. So let us try to understand, what exactly is VS Code. So VS Code is nothing but it is a code editor which is created by Microsoft, and this code editor can run on Mac, it can run on Windows, it can run on Linux. So it is a kind of a cross-platform editor, right? So once you download this setup, you will find that VS Code gets installed into your computer like this. So you can see that in my program files, there is VS Code. And if you open VS Code, you come to something like this. Now, one of the questions which can come to your mind is, what is the difference between VS Code, that is Visual Studio Code, and Visual Studio? If I put in two sentences, Visual Studio Code is an editor, while Visual Studio is an IDE, an integrated development environment. So what is the difference between an editor and an IDE? So let me talk 5-10 minutes around it. When we talk about development, enterprise development, right, we need a lot of things. We need a code editor, we need a way to do debugging, we need databases, we need web servers, we need code review tools, we need repository, and lot of things. We need test tools and so many things, right? A IDE like Visual Studio or Eclipse provides all of these things upfront. So for example, when you talk about Visual Studio, he will give you a code editor. For debugging, we have the Visual Studio Debugger. It also has a personal web server. It has SQL Server, the file edition. Then if you talk about code review tools, it will provide you some code review tools and so on. So basically, when you talk about Visual Studio or IDE or Eclipse, they actually provide you the full thing, while an editor just does that one part. It is an editor. It just gives you editing features. It just gives you bare bone, and it then tells you, okay, so here is a bare bone to you, and now if you want to go and add your web server, go and add your own web server. I'm not providing you anything. If you want to go and have a debugger, so basically go and add the plugins. So basically the difference between an editor and an IDE is that an editor is just an editor. It does not have a lot of other things. For the other things, you have to actually go and put those features manually. So let me reserve this heated debate of IDE versus editor, for the last discussion. So must be once we complete the VS Code tutorial, we can talk about, that is IDE good or is editor good. And also I will talk about my personal choice, what I think is good, right? So for now, let us concentrate on how to use VS Code editor, right? So first thing is, step one, you have downloaded the VS Code editor and you come to a screen like this, right? You can see that the first thing what you see is that you see this Explorer here. This Explorer actually tells you, what source code you have, what files you have in your project. Okay. Now, as I've said, that VS Code does not tie up with the language. It does not say that it is for C# or it is for JavaScript, it is for HTML. It is a very generic editor, like how you have Edit Plus or how you have Notepad Plus or how you have WebStorm. These are editors, right? So basically VS Code is an editor. It says that I don't know what you want to do. You want to do it for JavaScript. You want to use me for C#. You want to use me for PHP. I have no idea of it. So basically, it's a very bare bone thing you can see here. So it needs a folder, but it needs a folder, where you will put your source code, right? So let me go up and create one folder here. So we'll call this folder as Learn Visual Studio Code, right? So I'm going to go and create a folder. So let me go and create a folder here called as, a lot of things out there. So I'll just say Learn VS Code, new folder. Okay. And we'll say Learn VS Code, right? So I'm saying that, okay, inside this folder, I'm going to go and create my source code files, right? So first thing what it needs is, it actually needs a folder. right? So I'm going to say open folder, and I will say that I'm going to go and select this folder. So this folder is now my workspace inside which I will go and I will do my coding, I will put my resources, I will put my source code, and so on. So you can see now he's telling you yes. So you are now on the Learn VS Code folder, and inside this at this moment I don't have any files. So inside this at this moment we do not have anything, right? So the step 2 is that we need to go and we need to provide a folder, where we will be coding, we'll be putting our code files. In case for some reason you are not able to see this Explorer, you can click on this view menu and you can click on Explorer. So in case for some reason you don't see the Explorer, click on View Explorer, click on View Explorer, right? So now inside this Learn VS Code, let me go and create a folder. So I can go and create a folder by using this plus sign here. So you can see that there are 2 plus signs here. One is the new file and one is a new folder. So let us say that I'm creating a website. So in my website, I need to create a folder which will have the user interfaces. I want to go and create a folder. So I want to create a folder outside problem. So I want to create a folder. When I click on new folder, it is creating folder inside UI, which I don't want. Oh, it's outside. Okay, fine. So I want to go and create a folder here called as, let's say, business layers, right? Means this will have my business logic. I want to create one more folder here called as data layers. So basically, when we actually create a project, we normally create folders, right? So you can see now inside the Learn VS Code folder, I have 3 folders. So if you see internally what it is doing is, it is actually creating folders in my physical hard disk, right? So I have 3 folders here, and let us say inside the UI, I want to go and add a file here. So I'll say I want to add a file. I'll say index.html, right? So there it is, and I can start coding here. So I can say here now HTML, /HTML, right? So the second step is you would like to go and you would like to create folders and files inside VS Code. So let me go and create one more file here called as home.html, right? So this is index.html, home.html. Now you can see in this Explorer, this is step 3 to remember. In this Explorer, whichever files I have opened, he has actually opened up in this editor over here. So you can see that there are 2 sections here. One is which shows me the folder structure of my code, which shows me the file structure of my code, and second which says that which are the open files at this moment. So you can see one is I can go and see them through the tabs here. The other is they are available in this open editors menu, right? So I can either go and close them. If I close them, you can see everything is closed at the right hand side. If I click on it, they again open, right? So either I can close them from here. So if I close them from here, again it goes out from the open editors. So basically the Explorer has 2 sections, one which browses the folders and the files of your source code, and the second one which tells you that which of the editors have opened. And also what you can do is, one of the things which I do when I use VS Code, I come from a Visual Studio background. I use Visual Studio IDE, and one of the things in Visual Studio IDE is that we always see the Solution Explorer on the right hand side. So in case you want to go and move the Solution Explorer at the right hand side, so at least for me it is very difficult to think that the Solution Explorer starts at the left hand side. I do know that people who use Eclipse and who use other open sources, they love to see the Solution Explorer at the left hand side, but in Visual Studio, right, people who have been using Visual Studio for years together, they always see the Solution Explorer at the right hand side. So what I do is, when I use Visual Studio Code, just to make me feel home, what I do is that I toggle this Explorer to the right. So that it is to the right. So in case you want to feel comfortable, you want to feel home, you can use this toggle over here, which can toggle the explorers to the left and the right, right? So left, yeah, good. So step 1, we talked about how to download the source code. Step 2, I talked about that we need to go and give some kind of folder, right? And I showed you how to create the folders and files. And step 3, I talked about an important feature called as open editors. Now, by default, VS Code provides you IntelliSense for HTML and JavaScript. So you can see here, when I write here HTML, you can see that there are some code snippets which are provided. So if you're doing HTML and JavaScript and some basic things, VS Code does provide you IntelliSense, but it does not provide IntelliSense for everything. For example, let us say that I want to go and code in Java in this, and I want to go and code in C# and PHP, then you won't get too much help. So for that, you need to go and install a plugin, or I'll say you need to go and you need to install an extension. So you can go and you can search extension saying C#, let us say, and then you can go and install that extension. So this will actually give you IntelliSense for C#, right? So at this moment I'm not doing it. So step 4 to remember is that there is a very good support of extensions. So you can go and add your own extensions, install it, so that you can get this IntelliSense support, right? So let me go ahead here. So let me close this again. Let me open up Explorer. So let me go ahead and create a simple HTML page here, and ahead. When you are from Visual Studio background, it is so difficult to get around VS Code, right? So just a simple HTML out here, which yeah, and I'll just say this is my website, right? So you can see now I have created a very simple page here, and I've said this is my website. Also, I can go to the business layers and let me add a file here saying, okay, something like customer.js, right? So I've added a JavaScript file here, and in this I can go and I can write like, okay, function. So you can see like there is some syntax help for JavaScript as well. So it does provide you some kind of a mini IntelliSense, right? And in this, so I have some customer class here or a customer function, where I will write my business logic, right? So I will not go into JavaScript at this moment, right? So you can see now I have the customer.js, I have HTMLs, I have created folders and a lot of things, right? And you can see the open editors at the top. If I want, I can close them as well. Step 5. One more very great feature which I like about Visual Studio Code is that it has provided something called as the integrated terminal. So what is this integrated terminal? This integrated terminal is nothing but it gives you the command prompt. So the command prompt, which we actually see from outside like this, when we do a CMD. So that command prompt is now seen inside Visual Studio Code, right? So you can go to this command prompt, you can go and fire commands like directory, you can do a cd ... and all that, right? So what is the importance of this command prompt? One of the biggest importance of this command prompt is to go and execute tools. For example, if you want to go and execute a build tool, you want to go and execute some kind of a code review tool, right? So normally these tools are exes. So here you can go and fire those tools, so that you can see the code right here, right? And then you can fire those tools right at the below, right? So basically this integrated terminal is nothing but where you can go and fire any kind of command prompt, and so that you can use that in your development. For example, at this moment I need a web server. I need a web server where I can go and host my HTML, right? So what I can do is I can go and I can fire npm commands, that is a node commands, and I can say, okay, install HTTP server, right? In case you are new to Node, you can go and you can watch my videos of Node where I've explained what is Node, what is npm. So do go and watch that. But you can see that I can go and I can fire my Node command through the through my integrated terminal, which they have given me, and I can get right HTTP server in my project, right? So there it is, my HTTP server is getting installed. Once the HTTP server ggets installed, it will be actually seen inside my folder. So inside my folder, I I should see my node underscore modules, where that HTTP server will be installed. So if I refresh this, it's taking time, slow. So there you can see my web server has been installed, right? And if I go to my folder, I can see that inside the node underscore modules folder, the proxy has been installed, the HTTP server has been installed. So basically, you can go and fire such kind of command prompts, command tools, and take the help of it. So for example, now what I can do is, so now that I have installed my HTTP server, I can go and I can say here HTTP server start running on port 98, right? How? HTTP, sorry. So now what will happen is, I will have a HTTP server which is listening to the port 98, and what I can do is I can go and I can browse to this web server. So let me go and browse over here, and once I browse here, you can see that I can see my HTML. So what's my name of the HTML? It's home.html, right? So I can say here home.html. So you can see my website is now running. So basically you can see now, as I said, that Visual Studio Code is an editor. It is just bare bone, and it says that, okay, so if you want to get a server, then go and use Node, go and use something else, right? If you want to get some kind of IntelliSense for C# and Java, then go and install the plugin, right? So go and install the plugin, the extension. So basically VS Code is an editor. It is an editor which is bare bone, and you need to go and configure it as per your need, as per your demand. So as we already discussed, step 1, we talked about how to download. Step 2, we said that we need a folder and how to point to the folder by using VS Code. We looked into explorers and open editors. We talked about extension support, and step 5, we talked about a great feature called as the integrated terminal. Step 5, one more feature, which I really find it very important about VS Code is the explore feature. So for example, now let us say that I'm inside this Learn VS Code, and I don't know that where this folder is. Is it in C drive? Is it in D drive, right? So what I can do is I can right click on it and I can say reveal in Explorer. So if I click on this, it just goes to this folder here. So again, a very important feature which I feel when I do programming with VS Code, I keep using it. Right click, reveal in Explorer, right? So this just takes you right to the folder where your project is. Step 7, VS Code. One more important step which I always use when I'm coding with Visual Studio Code is hiding files which are unnecessary. Now what happens is, let us say you are using VS Code for your project and you end up with a lot of files, right? Now when you're browsing these files, you don't want to see all of the files. For example, I don't want to see this readme.txt. So I want to go and exclude these files. So what you can do is you can click on File, and you can go and define your preferences. So if you click on settings, what it does is it actually goes and gives you a file over here, which has a lot of common code, by which you can go and define the VS Code settings. For example, you can go and define the font family of the editor. You can go and define the tab size and so many things, right? But at this moment, my interest is that I want to go and exclude certain files, right? So I'm going to go and copy this code snippet and I will paste it in my workspace setting. So you can see that there's a workspace setting. So I'm going to go and paste my code over here, right? And I will say that star.text should be hidden. I'll save this. So once I do this, right. So there's an error because it has to be put inside a bracket. Save it, and you can see it has gone off. So basically you can now see that he has created a folder here called as .vs code. So if you go to the folder now, you can see that he has created a .vs code folder which has a settings.json file, and inside the setting.json file I have decided that I don't want to see the text files. So if I make this false, look at the left hand side, it shows me the text file. If I make it true, it does not show me the text file. So basically, when your project becomes bigger, if you want to go and hide certain files, then you can go and use this file preferences over here, right? So very quickly, step 7, which is important, is file preferences. Step 8, which I keep using in VS Code, is this bar at the left hand side, right? I find it very handy. If I want to go and see the Explorer, there it is. I can go and click on this tab. This next one is for the search. So I can go and say, okay, I want to go and search customer. So what it does is it goes to my folders and it tries to search that text inside any file. For example, you can see now this customer.js has this customer text, right? So again, the search, and also you have a replace function here. If you want to go and connect to Git, or if you want to go and debug, then these two links are out here. So again, this left hand side toolbar, comes very handy, right? So step 8, the left toolbar, which has search, Explorer, and so on, right? Good. Now, other important thing, what we want to do as a developer is we want to go and run certain kind of task. For example, while we are doing coding, we want to run some task which will actually go and do the code review, which will actually do a build, which will actually do a publish, and so many other things, right? Now, these tasks, VS Code has no idea of. Means, for example, now let us say that you have a task which goes and builds in C# using MS Build, or let us say you have a task which can go and do compiling of TypeScript, right? So these tasks are actually running through command prompt. So only thing what VS Code wants is that he wants to know the command code or the command line syntax, how to go and run this compilers, or how to go and run this task. For example, if you see TypeScript, in case you are new to TypeScript, I would suggest to go and watch the TypeScript videos what we have on Questpond, where I've explained what is TypeScript and the importance of TypeScript. Now for TypeScript, we have a compiler called as the TypeScript compiler. For example, now let us say I can go and I can create a TypeScript file here called as supplier.ts. .ts. So I can go and create a supplier.ts, and inside the supplier.ts I can go and write here class supplier, and I can do this, right? Now in order to go and compile, if you want to go and compile this up, then we have something called as the TypeScript command, and the TypeScript command actually runs from the command prompt. So if you go to the integrated terminal, so let me go here. So what I can do is I think my web server is still running, so let me do a control pause. Where is the control pause? Control and control pause. Oh yeah, there it is. Now control end. Okay, I can also go and kill this command, so I can just go and say close this, and I can go and delete this whole thing. Integrated terminal. Yeah, there it is. It got killed. Good. So now I'm so sorry for this. So if I go to my business layers now, so if I want to go and compile this file here, right, the supplier.ts, I have a command called as tsc, and I can see here supplier.ts, right? So if I press enter, what it does is it actually goes and compiles this to supplier.js, right? So if you see here, the supplier.js has been compiled, right? So the first thing is that, what he's expecting is, he's saying that tell me your command line. So VS Code has no idea. VS Code has no idea of TypeScript. He just knows the command line tsc, right? In the same way, you can also go and use MS Build. So MS Build is for C#, right? So in case you want to do a build, you use MS Build. In the same way, we have other tools as well, right? So what he's expecting is he's saying that tell me your command line, and I will go and invoke that command line when you go and do Control-Shift-P the build, right? So for example, now let us say I want to go and run the TypeScript compiler, right, or the TypeScript compiler after the coding. I can say Control-Shift-P. The time I say Control-Shift-P, he says that, oh, no task runner has been configured. So I'm going to go and say, okay, I want to configure a task runner. And when I click on the task runner, he says, okay, so what kind of task is this? Is this a Microsoft .NET build? Is this a Maven build? Is this a grunt task? So basically build, code reviews, these are nothing but tasks, right? So I'm going to say, oh, this is a grunt task here, right? And in this grunt task, I want to go and do the following. So I want to go and run TSC, right? So you can go and see the code later on, but you can see what it says is that it says that he's going to go and run TSC, right, in the command line. So now let me go and delete this. Okay, so if you see now, look at the downside here. So when I say Control Shift B, you can see the compiling has started here. He has compiled it, and oh, you can see there are some errors here. He's saying, oh, I cannot find the tsconfig.json file. So yes, we also need something called as the tsconfig.json file. This is the file which TypeScript command prompt uses it, right? So I'm going to go and copy it right from this site of code.visualstudio.com. So the tsconfig.json file is a file which has some configurations related to TypeScript, saying that you need to compile it by using ES5, you want to use the CommonJS, and whatnot, right? So I'm going to go and add here a new file, tsconfig.json, right? And I'll go and paste this as it is, and let me say Control Shift P, and I hope this time I've given him the tsconfig.json file. tsconfig.json file cannot find at the specified directory. Should this be, I think this should be needed outside. I think the tsconfig.json has to just lie outside. I'm so sorry for this. So let me go to my UI. I'm going to go and cut this, paste it here, right? Control Shift B. Yep. So I think the tsconfig.json should be lying outside, right? And you can see now, if I go to my output console here, so I'm going to go and close all this. So when I do a Control Shift B, you can see the compiler running at the down. And if there are any problems, you can get in the problems here. You can see that there is no problems at this moment. And he has built the supplier.js file. So you can see the supplier.js file and the map file. So basically, if you want to go and run any kind of task, you have to say Control Shift B, you have to go and define the task. Now the task can be a grunt task, which will go and compile TypeScript. It can be a gulp task. It can be a MS build task. It can be a Maven task. It can be any kind of task. Remember that VS Code is just an editor. So you need to provide him what to do, right? So again, a very important point, step 9, using configuring tasks. So Control Shift B to configure task. And step 10, I think this you can learn along the way, is using features of Visual Studio. For example, Visual Studio Code, for example, going back, zooming in, zooming out, right? So there are lots of shortcut keys out here. For example, if I want to zoom in, then Control minus. If I want to zoom out, then Control plus. I like this. Second, let us say I'm in customer.js, then I go to supplier.js. Now I just want to go back to my previous place where I was, customer.js. I can go and I can say go back. So Alt and left arrow. So if I go, it goes to customer.js. If I go forward, it goes to supplier.js. So again, I feel that these keys out here, you can go through it. These keys will help you to actually code faster in VS Code. So these are the 10 points by which you can just start with VS Code. As I've said that previously also, that learning has no end. Whatever I've taught here in VS Code is just to start you up, make you running so that you can start coding. But as you learn along, you will become a master in this. But I think these 10 steps are more than enough to at least start with VS Code, right? So first one, we talked about from where to download from. Second, we talked about the folder options. So you have to go and create a folder and all your source codes are inside it. Then we talked about open editors. So you can see here open editors and the Explorer. So this is open editor and you can close it. And then there is Explorer as well. So view Explorer, you can go from here. You can go from here. Then we talked about extension support. So in case you want to go and get an extension, you can always click on this extension here, search for the extensions and you can install it. Integrated terminal to fire your command prompt. So again, view integrated terminal and you can go and start typing your command prompt, what you want to do here. Reveal in Explorer, if you want to go back, go to the folder where you are. So you can go and right click and say reveal in Explorer. With that, you just go to that folder where that source code is. File preferences, if you want to go and hide things or if you want to go and change the colors, and a lot of things about VS Code, you can go and click on settings and create your own preferences. Toolbar, if you want to go and move the toolbar left and right. If you want to go and configure a task, Control Shift P, I'm so sorry, it's not shit, Control Shift P to configure a task and then going back and zooming and all that, right? So I hope that these 10 steps are more than enough to make you get started. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. In this video, we were trying to go through the important 10 steps, which can help you to get quickly into VS Code. Go ahead, enjoy Visual Studio Code. It is free, it is open source, it has no affinity towards any language, and go ahead and create your next big project. Thank you. And just before I close this video, I want to just discuss about the difference between an editor and an IDE, when to use what, right? So basically, I had said that, at the end of this video, I will have a short discussion on it. So basically, what is good, editor or IDE? Okay. Here is my absolutely personal thought process. I will always use IDE, whatsoever it is, right? If you see around, a lot of people say that, editors are for real developers. Now, that's something very controversial for me. But I feel that, I want to pay attention to the project. I want to complete the project on time. I really don't want to get into configuring my web server, configuring my build task and all that, right? So I would definitely go and use a IDE which has everything. So in case I'm a C# person, I would probably go and prefer Visual Studio. In case I'm a Java guy, probably I will use Eclipse because, in this, I know that I need a web API. I know I need an MVC. I know I need SQL Server. I know I want to go and debug and all that. So basically, I don't want to get into an editor and then start configuring it. But here's where, editor comes into picture. There are times, where, for example, let us say that you are just doing HTML and JavaScript, nothing else, right? Simple. So at that time, having an IDE is too much of a load, I think so, right? So that is one place. And the second important place I will use editor is when there is no IDE for that language. For example, that day, one of my friend created one programming language, which he has, which he actually architected, and he said that this is a programming language. Now for that programming language, there was no IDE because he had just created the framework. So at that time, what we did is we plugged in the VS Code editor and we were able to type and we were able to compile. So if there is no IDE, then I don't have any choice. I need to go and use an editor. But most of the time, personally, I code in C# and I think a lot of other people also code in languages like Java and other things, where they have IDE. So I think IDE will always be preferred. If you don't have IDE, then I think people will come to editor, or when they are doing something very simple like just going and doing HTML and JavaScript, they will use editor. One more plus point about editor is that when you use an editor, you have to configure a lot of things yourself. So with that, your fundamentals get clear. So definitely, when you are learning something new, and if you want to know the internals of that language, then I will definitely recommend an editor, because in editor, you have to configure everything manually. You have to go through the pain, and then you know how to control the project, right? But for enterprise project, where there is a deadline, where I have to close things as soon as possible, editor is a no from me, right? And I'm extremely sorry, because I know that there are a lot of editor lovers out there, who actually use VS Code, who actually use Edit Plus and all that things. But this is just my personal saying here that I love IDE because I want to deliver and not reinvent the wheel.